There's a certain kind of person who flinches when someone raises their voice. Not because they are weak, however, because their nervous system had been trained in a home where silence meant safety. You learned to read the room before you could read a book. You became fluent in the language of tension. The subtle shift in your parents' eyes, the way a closed door felt, was different from that of an open one. Here is what researchers discovered after studying thousands of children of divorce. The divorce itself was not the wound. The wound was learning that love could end, those promises could dissolve, that the two people who created your world could decide to live in separate ones. But this story is not about brokenness. It is about what happens when a child grows up believing stability is borrowed time. In the next 10 minutes, you will understand exactly what your nervous system learned, why you struggle with the relationships you want most, and how to finally break the cycle. Let me paint a picture you might recognize. You are sitting at the dinner table. Your parents are not fighting. In fact, they are barely speaking to each other. And somehow, that silence feels heavier than any argument ever could. You are 8, maybe 10, learning something no child should have to learn so young. The absence of conflict does not mean peace. It means distance. Psychologists call this the silent rupture. It is the moment when a family begins to dissolve, not with explosions, but with quiet withdrawal. And children absorb every second of it. They feel the temperature drop in a room. They notice when laughter becomes forced. They sense when a hug is just going through the motions. Here is what research tells us. Children of divorced parents are significantly more likely to develop what attachment theorists call anxious or avoidant attachment styles. But statistics cannot capture what this actually feels like. The way you started monitoring your parents' moods was like a weather forecaster. The way you began editing yourself, filtering your joy so it would not become someone else's pain. Did you ever notice yourself doing this? Deciding not to mention something fun you did at one parent's house because it might upset the other? Packing your bag on Friday evening, carrying not just clothes but the invisible weight of two worlds that do not quite touch. That is not paranoia, that is adaptation. Your brain learned early that love required careful navigation. But wait, it goes deeper than that. Have you ever felt guilty for loving someone? Not romantic love, I mean the guilt of loving your father while sitting in your mother's house, or missing your mother while laughing at your father's jokes. This is what psychologists refer to as loyalty conflict, and it is one of the most invisible burdens a child of divorce carries. You become a bridge between two worlds that do not want to touch, and bridges, by their nature, are always stretched. Consider the child who wonders whether to tell dad that mum got a promotion, or whether to mention to mum that dad taught them how to ride a bike. Even at a young age, they are already learning to segment their life, to present different versions of themselves depending on which home they are in. Research shows that children experiencing loyalty conflict often develop heightened emotional intelligence. You learn to read people with remarkable accuracy. You become skilled at anticipating needs, smoothing tensions, and preventing ruptures before they happen. By 12, many of these children have become experts at reading the emotional weather in each home. They know exactly which topics are safe. They learn to tread lightly around certain subjects. Sometimes they even exaggerate achievements, hoping it will ease the guilt their parents carry. But here is the shadow side. That same sensitivity can become hypervigilance. You grow up believing that peace is fragile, that stability can vanish overnight, that you must always be watching, always be ready, always one step ahead of the next rupture. This leads to something that most people never discuss. There is a question that haunts nearly every child of divorce, a question most of them never speak. Did I cause this? Developmental psychologists confirm this pattern consistently. Children, especially those under 10, often internalize divorce as something they somehow triggered. Maybe it was because they misbehaved, maybe because they fought with their siblings, maybe because they were not good enough. maybe because they existed at all. These thoughts are rarely logical, but they are painfully real. They live in the quiet spaces between sleep and waking. They surface when report cards come home or when holidays feel incomplete. And here is what makes this so important. If you carried this guilt into adulthood without ever naming it, it shaped you in ways you might not recognize. The constant need to please, the fear of being too much or not enough, the belief that if you just try harder, you can hold things together, the way you overfunction in relationships, trying to prevent another ending. But here is the truth that can change everything. You did not break your family. You were caught in a change you could not control. You were not the cause, you were the witness. Sometimes healing does not come from grand gestures. It comes from someone naming the truth you could not name yourself. So let me name it for you now. It was never your fault. Type 1 in the comments if this landed for you. Type 0 if your experience was different. I want to know your story. Now let me introduce a concept that will reframe everything. According to attachment theory, the way your parents related to each other and to you during childhood literally wired your nervous system for relationships. Children who experience parental divorce often develop what researchers call insecure attachment patterns. This is not a personal failing. This is neuroscience. When a child grows up in an environment where the primary attachment figures separate, their brain learns certain lessons about relationships. Lessons that become encoded in the body itself. This shows up in two main ways. The first is anxious attachment. You crave closeness but constantly fear abandonment. You need reassurance but never quite believe it. You might find yourself checking your phone obsessively, testing partners with small provocations to see if they will stay, interpreting brief silences as signs of impending rejection. The second is avoidant attachment. You learned that depending on others leads to disappointment. So you keep emotional distance. You value independence to the point of isolation. You feel most comfortable when there is space between you and the people you care about. You leave before someone can leave you. Here is what makes this profound. Neither pattern is a character flaw. Both are survival strategies your young brain created to protect you from experiencing the pain of loss again. Your nervous system decided early on that safety required vigilance, or that safety required distance, and it has been running that program ever since. But survival strategies designed for childhood do not serve you in adulthood, and recognizing this is the first step toward rewiring. And here is the part that might surprise you. Let me name the fear that lives beneath the surface for so many children of divorce. According to research on generational trauma, the primary driver behind childhood trauma searches is what experts call the fear of repeating cycles. You are terrified that you will unconsciously replicate the patterns you witnessed, that the distance you saw between your parents will somehow find its way into your own relationships. This fear has a name now. Millions of people identify as cycle breakers. They carry a fierce determination to break free from patterns that have been passed down through generations. They study psychology, they go to therapy, they read every book on attachment, all because they refuse to let the past become the future. But here is the paradox. The very intensity of this fear can create what you are trying to avoid. When you are hypervigilant about signs of disconnection, you sometimes create the disconnection yourself. When you are constantly scanning for problems, you struggle to relax into connection. When you are waiting for love to fail, you struggle to fully receive it when it is present. Here is something powerful to understand. Children of divorce are not destined to repeat the same patterns of behavior. In fact, many of them, once they process and understand their past, become deeply committed to creating stable, healthy relationships of their own. They know the value of communication, they know the cost of silence, and they know that love to survive must be nurtured, not assumed. The question is not whether you will repeat history. The question is whether you will become conscious enough to write a different story. Now here is where the narrative shifts. Because everything I have described so far sounds like damage, and yes, there are wounds. However, something remarkable also emerges from the cracks. Children of divorce often grow up to be deeply empathetic adults. You know what it feels like to hold unspoken pain, so you recognize it in others. You know the weight of divided loyalty, so you understand complexity in ways others might not. You became the kind of person who could comfort a friend with uncanny wisdom because you knew firsthand what it felt like to carry invisible burdens. Research shows that children who navigate divorce successfully often develop exceptional problem-solving skills. You learned early to juggle different realities, to adapt to different rules, different moods, different values. You learned to hold contradictions without breaking. And here is something fascinating: many children, through this very struggle, develop a strong, unique identity as they grow older. They learn to combine the lessons of both worlds, to draw strength from contrast. Think about it: a child who sees two different perspectives on life develops a wider lens. You learn discipline from one parent and compassion from another. You learn structure in one home and flexibility in the other. At first, it felt like a contradiction. Later, it can become an integration. This is not weakness disguised as strength. This is genuine resilience born from genuine difficulty. Resilience does not grow in comfort. It grows in the cracks, in the places where life challenges us to adapt. But here is where it gets complicated, because the very thing that made you strong can also become your prison. Here is something that might change your life. Since your biological parents may not have provided the consistent, emotional safety you needed, you have the opportunity to learn something powerful. You can learn to reparent yourself. This concept comes directly from modern psychology. Reparenting means becoming your own primary source of validation. It means learning to offer yourself the comfort, encouragement, and boundaries you may not have consistently received. It means reducing your dependency on external approval by building an internal foundation. This is not about blaming your parents. Divorce is complicated. Your parents were likely doing the best they could with the tools they had. Many of them were fighting their own battles, dealing with their own childhood wounds, navigating their own imperfect coping mechanisms. This is about recognizing that as an adult, you now have the power to give yourself what was missing. What does this look like practically? It looks like noticing when you are abandoning yourself to please others. It appears to be setting boundaries without guilt. It seems that speaking kindly to yourself when old fears resurface is beneficial. It looks like allowing yourself to rest without earning it through productivity. It seems that you are finally understanding that you are worthy of love. Not because you earned it through performance, not because you held the family together, but because you exist. This shift from seeking external validation to building internal security is one of the most profound transformations a child of divorce can make. But that is only half the story. Let me address something that might hit close to home. Many children of divorce grow into adults who desperately crave connection, but are terrified of vulnerability. There is a paradox at the center of their hearts. They want intimacy more than almost anything, and they fear it more than almost anything too. This creates a pattern psychologists call self-sabotage in relationships. You find someone wonderful, things start to feel real, and then something inside you panics. You pick fights over small things. You withdraw without explanation. You create distance to test whether they will chase you. You leave before they can leave you. Does this sound familiar? Drop a comment below and let me know which country you are watching from. Is it the United States, Canada, Australia, Philippines? I want to see how far this message travels. Here is what is happening beneath the surface. Your nervous system learned that intimacy precedes loss. So it sends alarm signals whenever you get close to someone, not because the relationship is dangerous, but because your body remembers what happened last time you trusted stability. The path forward is not to fight this fear. It is to befriend it, to recognize it as a younger version of yourself trying to protect you, and to gently show that part of you that you are no longer a child who cannot survive loss. You are an adult now. You have resources, you have awareness, you have a choice. And sometimes the most radical thing you can do is stay. Not leave, not withdraw, just stay and let yourself be loved. Here is perhaps the most important insight of all. Children of divorce know the cost of silence. They know what happens when important things go unsaid, when distance grows unchecked, when assumptions replace conversations, when two people drift apart because neither had the courage to speak the truth. And this gives them a profound gift if they choose to claim it. The gift of honesty. Many children of divorce who undergo inner work become adults who value communication with an unusual intensity. They do not let small resentments fester. They speak difficult truths even when their voice shakes. They ask the questions most people avoid. They prioritize presence over pretense. Because they know what silence creates. They saw it in real time. They felt the temperature drop in their childhood home, and they refuse to let it happen again. This is where survival becomes wisdom. This is where the wound becomes the teacher. This is where the very thing that hurt you becomes the source of your deepest strength. Let me leave you with a reframe that might shift everything. You may have spent years asking, does love last? Will I repeat my parents' patterns? Am I capable of creating something stable? But what if the question is different? What if instead of asking whether love lasts forever, you asked, can I love fully while it lasts? What if instead of fearing repetition, you focused on conscious creation? What if the very awareness that came from your difficult childhood became the foundation for a different kind of relationship? One built not on naive certainty, but on intentional devotion. One where you choose each other not because you have to, but because you want to. You, again and again. Children of divorce who heal often understand something profound. Love is not guaranteed, and that is exactly what makes it sacred. Stability is not promised, and that is exactly what makes it worth protecting. When they choose to love, they do so with eyes wide open, not because they are afraid, but because they understand the value of what they are choosing. They know how precious presence is. They know how rare true commitment becomes. And that knowledge, born from pain, becomes the foundation for something beautiful. So if you grew up watching your parents' marriage dissolve, here is what I want you to know. You are not defined by their story. You are not destined to repeat it. The patterns you learned were survival strategies, and survival strategies can be updated. The very sensitivity that once felt like a curse can become your greatest gift. The depth you carry, the empathy you developed, the vigilance that kept you safe, these can all be transformed into tools for creating the love you always craved. You were never broken. You were adapting to a world that felt unpredictable. And now you get to choose. You get to decide what love means on your terms. You get to build the stability you always wanted, starting from within. Maybe that is the secret gift hidden inside the pain. Children of divorce who do this work often grow into adults who understand something most people never learn. Love is not about perfection. It is about choosing again and again, even when it is fragile, especially when it is fragile. You are no longer a child of broken promises. You are becoming the one who keeps them.